A major update surrounding a top Viking star in Christian Darrisaw has been revealed after an ACL tear last year. The plan has now been revealed as to what the start of the season is going to look like for him and what this means for newly drafted Donovan Jackson in this offensive line. We're going to be talking about that, as well as a report suggesting a trade before the season starts to acquire Joe Flacco. We're going to be breaking down all these insane reports that we have here today. Before we do jump into it though, ladies and gentlemen, be sure to hit the sub button if you haven't already. We're on the road to 2K, and we're just about halfway there. Your support's been incredible as of late on the videos, and we appreciate all of you guys watching these videos as the season gets closer and closer by the day. But we needed to jump into our first quote here. And this comes from Alec Lewis, based on everything that we've seen with the offensive line, Christian Darrisaw thus far, and this was asked on the question of when he will be back. Will he be back in time for week 1? That's probably a rosy expectation at this point, Lewis wrote on July 2nd. Still, Darrisaw has attacked his rehab, and the Vikings have commended his progress. Now, the fact that Alec Lewis came out with this a couple weeks ago, now coming out and still seeing the same thing in all of these reports, really gives us a good idea that he won't be here for week 1. And that's something that we're fine with. Of course, as long as he stays healthy, you don't want to rush him back and re-cause an injury. We need Christian Darrisaw here on this team. So missing a week or two is much better than coming back early and missing the rest of a season. But this does mean that the offensive line has a hole here at left tackle. And as you see right now on the depth chart right here via ESPN, Christian Darrisaw is still there. He's under questionable, which means that, he could still be an option. As Alec Lewis said, it is a rosy expectation. So it is a possibility that he does return. However, it does seem more likely that he will not. And what does this mean for Donovan Jackson, who is currently at left guard, has played quite a bit of left tackle in his career, and it could be a great option for him to come in at left tackle and start the NFL season at left tackle. Now, of course, left guard is where they got him for. They wanted him to replace Blake Brandel, But if the option is there to play left tackle while Christian Darrisaw is out, Blake Brandel still can play left guard. That seems like a very good option right now for this team to start off the season. And jumping in, looking at what we saw from Donovan Jackson over his career with Ohio State. Over the 22 and 23 seasons, Jackson started 26 straight games at left guard. He then started 3 for the first 5 games of the 24 season, and then he moved outside left tackle for the remainder of the season in place of the injured Josh Simmons. So he has an experience there, and honestly, it is the more recent experience that he's had. Of course, we expect during training camp to see him at left guard, and for the most part, that's where we have seen him thus far. However, starting into our beginning of the season, it will not surprise me if they try him there for a game of the preseason. Maybe even, if it works out, keep him there until we see Christian Darrisaw come back. Because, of course, as we do look towards it, Blake Brandel has shown that he can be a good left guard for the time that he needs to. Now, he's not a full season left guard. We saw that as a very evident piece last year. But the way that this offensive line has been built, now putting Darrisaw at left tackle, Donovan Jackson, the new acquisitions of Ryan Kelly and Will Fries, and of course Brian O'Neill at right tackle, this offensive line, when healthy, is structured perfectly. So moving your best assets into the starting lineup is something that I'm perfectly okay with as we do move into the season. And I think it's going to be a good look for Donovan Jackson as well. Give him another option. Let's see where he can go. But, of course, left tackle is going to be a big hole for the first game, of course, if Darrisaw is not there. But we do have a very confident option in Donovan Jackson there. And I want to pull this up as well. This is from another article continuing on about Donovan Jackson. Though tackle wasn't Jackson's usual position at Ohio State, he helped anchor the line through another major injury to an offensive line starter, Remington Trophy winner, All-American Seth McLaughlin, and to the college football title. So, it worked out. I think that's basically the bottom line of what we can see here for Donovan Jackson, what he brings to the table here. And although he is going to be, as I mentioned, and I will continue to mention that he will be the left guard, there's no other option to put him anywhere in this lineup. It may be a great option to start him there at the beginning of the season, let him go there where he played last season to get comfortable with it, and then move over to left guard back to where he's very comfortable with throughout his entire career when we see Christian Darrisaw get healthy, just to make this offensive line as good as possible for J.J. McCarthy's first few games in the NFL. So I want to know what you think about that, and if the Vikings have any other plans, I want to know what you think is your preferred offensive line if Darrisaw was to miss any time at the beginning of this season. But speaking of quarterbacks now, we do have another option and another very interesting article, as we know the Vikings have been in many reports about searching for another backup quarterback. We've not heard anything from the Vikings themselves, but now having J.J. McCarthy as the number one, lots of questions are arising of what's going to happen if he's not ready. And we're not willing to look that far, but it always is a bit of a concern when you do take a look at it, and whoever your backup is, you have to trust them. And when we do go into this article here, this one from Matt Holder, While Flacco could be starting the quarterback in Cleveland this year, let's be honest, the Browns are going to have a tough time being a playoff contender this season. Holder wrote Wednesday, July 16th. Meanwhile, trading Flacco would yield some draft capital from a team that could use a veteran backup. He then goes on in this article to suggest the Minnesota Vikings in this case, due to the sheer amount of quarterbacks, first of all, that the Browns have. Second of all, the lack of veteran quarterbacks that the Vikings have. It makes quite a bit of sense when coming down to it and taking a look at where things stand. However, it is very interesting to take a look at it and have a lot of people already not trust J.J. McCarthy and also wanting to have that safety net just in case anything goes awry on his gameplay throughout this season. Now, jumping into what we have here, of course, Matt Holder of Bleacher Report advised the Browns to deal with Joe Flacco for draft capital anyways, and Minnesota could offer a day 3 pick that sends a real asset back to Cleveland's way for a quarterback they may not need / use to this season, but almost certainly won't include on the roster come spring in 2026. And when we do go take a look at the quarterback room for the Browns, you have 4 very, very, I wouldn't say good quarterbacks necessarily, but very decent quarterback lineup, with Shedeur Sanders not even being on this list. So adding it to that, wanting to free up some room for Shedeur in this 1, 2, 3, or 4, wherever they go. Of course, Kenny Pickett, I would say second most experienced if Joe Flacco were to be traded behind Deshaun Watson. And of course, Deshaun Watson, whatever happens with him, is a very big uncertainty for the Browns. So the Vikings being able to go and get a guy like Joe Flacco, who was available in free agency, and the fact that the Vikings didn't go out and try and get him, probably is kind of answering all of our questions here, whether or not the Vikings are going to be interested in him. However, when we do take a look at this Vikings quarterback room, it really does not help to have, or it really does not hurt, to have some extra help with some veteran quarterbacks here. And of course, Sam Howell, he's pretty decent, has a negative touchdown-interception ratio in his career. However, when you put him in the right system, especially now with this Vikings team, he would probably be a much better quarterback than he was in his last few seasons. Brett Rypien, another very, very solid 3 here in this case. We saw him a few times last year, and we saw that he can be a reliable backup. And going to J.J. McCarthy, of course, we still expect him to be that number 1. We expect him to be ready to go this season. And, of course, if some things happen, the Vikings are not going to hinder his decision to be a number 1 quarterback. They trust him. They've obviously said they're going to trust him. And from everything we've seen, this team it is built for J.J. McCarthy with the price they're paying him and being on a rookie contract. We know how much the Vikings are valuing that decision and how much they're valuing his contract to be able to build the team that they currently have. So even though Joe Flacco is an option here, I think the Vikings have made their decision. They're trusting him, and of course, Sam Howell is a very viable option as a backup quarterback if needed. And I think the Vikings are finding themselves in a good spot in quarterback. I think a lot of people are still going to be questioning that, but we're going to really see now in a couple weeks when we do get down to preseason, we're going to see J.J. McCarthy, and if he starts off hot like last year, I think we're in a very good spot. So let me know what you think about all the news that we had here today. First of all, about the offensive line, Christian Darrisaw, Donovan Jackson. Would you see Donovan Jackson at left tackle for the first few games if, of course, Christian Darrisaw is not being able to play with that injury still? And also let me know what you think about the option of trading for Joe Flacco. Of course, a day 3 pick, really no risk in that. The Vikings have the assets they need to be able to make that move, facilitate a move, and realistically, having Joe Flacco as a quarterback, a very big veteran, and bring him in for a guy like J.J. McCarthy certainly wouldn't hurt. But that is all I got in this video. If you did enjoy, give it a like, hit the sub button as well. I'm signing out, though. Thank you for watching. Hope you have a great day. See you later.